Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another great comparison brought to you, of course, by Belmont Watches. They're a local dealer here in San Diego, but they do ship online if you are interested in checking out their inventory. They always have really interesting stuff, so I'm always kind of happy to collaborate with them and take a look at some of their current stock. Here we actually have a bit of a nice little mix here. I know you're seeing two Seikos that look pretty similar, but the one on the left is actually the personal watch of Anthony, who works at Belmont Watches, versus the watch on the right, which is actually one that they have for sale. And you know, we've kind of chatted back and forth about the model on the left. This particular SPB Captain Willard is just really interesting to me, as well as, of course, the SLA variant on the right. So you know, I think this is one of those things where I'm not sure if anybody's really compared these two before, but honestly, I wasn't going into either of these watches to compare them. I was actually kind of interested in doing individual reviews, and then once I had them kind of next to each other, I was like, oh wow, this would probably be useful to compare side by side, because I'm blown away by how similar they are. Yeah, big Seiko collector, so of course Captain Willard has always been you know, a very important reference within Seiko's catalog. So happy to kind of get a hands-on look, get a little bit closer, dive a little bit deeper with you know, these really different but similarly inspired models. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the more affordable model of the two here from the SPB line. This is the Seiko Prospex SPB237 Captain Willard in the gray textured dial, and it's basically a modern reinterpretation of Seiko's classic 6105-8110 heritage turtle from the 1970s that was famously worn by Martin Sheen's character Captain Willard in the Vietnam War film Apocalypse Now. These go for $1,300 MSRP. This is loaned in by Anthony from Belmont Watches. This is his personal watch that he takes out and dives with and spearfishes with. So amazingly enough, this is a bit of a beater for him, and I have to say the hard coating's really held up, so it looks great. And because of the particular layout and the colorways that they did, to where it's not a really obvious jump in your face kind of patination, the patina here actually, I think, is something that integrates really well with the overall look, to where this will age really well, and it has already started to begin to age, and it's picking up, you know, its character really well, which I appreciate. So that super hard coating is holding up. You're getting a sapphire single dome with a chamfered edge with inner AR coating. You're getting a unidirectional rotating 120 click bezel. Nicely dialed in, easy to grasp. Great tactile engagement with this bezel edge there, very nice. The crown is actually still quite accessible. I'd say that's one of the advantages this has over the more expensive model, is I think the ergonomics for winding and unwinding and screwing down and unscrewing down the crown is actually a bit better with this more affordable model. Then you look at, well, the movement inside is something that's another difference. You're getting the 6R35 versus the 8L 35 over here. So with the 6L, you're going to have the slightly slower beat rate, but it's going to have an extended power reserve of 70 hours. The beat rate is going to be 3 hertz, so 6 ticks per second. And then in terms of the accuracy, it's, you know, maximum accuracy tolerances would be -15 to +25, but they always run a lot better than that. You know, at least in my experience of owning tons of Seikos, they normally run a lot better, but there's no reason to really advertise what each one is running at, considering that they are unregulated. When you get down into the dial here, you can see really beautifully textured. And what we'll do is we'll kind of hold off on that until we get a couple of little bites of information out about this model, and then we can kind of compare directly. So this is the Seiko Prospex SLA051, and it's also a modern interpretation of that same 6105 reference, except this one is really more inspired, I should say less inspired by a movie character and more inspired by the fact that it was famously worn by a Japanese explorer named the name of Naomi Uemura. Naomi Uemura. And Naomi, I'm messing it up. It's fine. You guys can look it up. Just look it up. It's better that way. Let me give it a quick wipe. But basically, there's this awesome Japanese explorer who also wore that same model reference that was featured in the movie. So this one is more about, in terms of its reimagining, it's more about paying homage to, the exploration side of this particular timepiece and the roots in which that it was inspired by. So basically, in his short life, he racked up an extraordinary list of accomplishments, including being the first person to climb 5 of the world's 7 summits. So very cool. These go for $2,900 MSRP. Some of you are like, man, Seiko is getting so expensive. I will say that this has an 8L movement, and $2,900 for an 8L powered movement isn't bad at all. Even better if you're getting it from Belmont Watches pre-owned, $1,650, guys, $1,650. I mean, that is the types of prices you sell to your friend if you buy a watch like this. So really impressed with that price point. Honestly, makes it very hard for me not to kind of inquire about securing this one for myself, just because it is that darn good. So yeah, definitely this one is for sale from Belmont Watches. I'll leave a link in the description. This one actually is a bit bigger, so 44 millimeters versus the 42.5, and then 13.1 millimeters thick though, which actually makes it slightly thinner than this Prospex model, but the lug to lug is a bit longer at 49 versus 46. Inside, oh well, of course you're going to be getting sapphire at this price point, and it's a nicer sapphire. You can see also has that super clear coating, which is working beautifully. You're getting this nicely lacquered steel insert versus the aluminum insert, which is a little bit more standard. 8L35, which is going to have a 50-hour power reserve, which is slightly less, but it's going to have a 4 hertz sweep, which is going to be 8 ticks per second, and then its tolerances are a bit tighter, at least maximum tolerance at -10 plus 15 seconds per day accuracy. And instead of getting kind of more of a bargain in terms of, hey, this is a really great $1,000 watch, now you're getting into a little bit more of, hey, this is a great watch for under $5,000. This is really highly competitive when you think about the pedigree, when you think about the execution, of course, the level of in-house that Seiko brings to all of their watches, high-end or entry level. They produce everything from growing their own jewels to formulating their own lubricants. So now that we have that little intro out of the way, let's take a look at these. They do have a very similar look, and their dial textures are a bit similar. I'd say it's a little bit grainier, and it has more of a vertical striation on the SPB versus the SLA has more of a clear kind of I'd say it's a little bit more even in terms of that. I mean, they both have a slight sunray pattern to them in terms of the way that they're going to play off of light. But when you look, you can see just a little bit of a finer dial there. And then, of course, you actually have a blacked out chapter ring on the SLA versus more of a standard brushed steel chapter ring on the inside, riding above and around the dial on the SPB. Also, you're going to notice that there's a little bit of, in terms of the colorway, although they both kind of evoke a bit of a faded dial style, here you're going to get one that's a little bit more modern with the SLA, everything very clean and crisp, with the Lume almost tinting to a slight green hue hue when in daylight, versus here you're getting more of an ivory tone. And then also with you know, this really lovely bezel insert, it actually has hints of a kind of pale golden bronze tone, which I think really warms things up and makes this just feel a little bit more worn, which I like. It's not overt, it's not in your face, it's something to where it really just gives it just a nice push of personality. And here you're getting more of kind of a modern, and one of the things I thought was really interesting is they actually did a similar lip in terms of this beveling, where it's formed very similar to the SARB, SRB 033 and 035, where there's kind of a rolled bevel there, where there's even not just the finishing, where the finishing breaks and changes, or the actual case contour, which I think looks really cool and interesting. It actually ties in, I think, really nicely with the outer polished edges on this really nice bracelet. I have to say this bracelet is really impressive. Definitely finished higher, you know, to a higher level than anything else I've seen, you know, outside of Grand Seiko for Seiko. Very Presage like in terms of the fit and the finish, although it is still a very simple layout. Don't get me wrong, still going to be using pins and collars. It's still really nice. And then you also do have drilled lugs, so it makes swapping this out kind of a breeze. And it also has 20mm lugs, so you can, you know, put it on even one of these fancy NATOs if you want. So these are just two really beautiful examples of kind of watches taking different inspiration from the same watch and doing it differently, but somehow winding up in a similar place in the end, you know, where this was more inspired by the military aesthetic associated with the film. Here, this definitely was more associated with, you know, just general purpose, you know, adventure style. And, you know, I think they both worked really well. And within these two particular dial variations, they do kind of arrive at a similar sweet spot. So with that said, instead of me, you know, formally cutting away and putting them on the wrist, I'll just do it really quick here for you guys. One, because this bracelet isn't sized, so it doesn't like fit super good or anything on me. It actually is an unworn bracelet from the previous owner. So although the case is in immaculate condition, if I give it a quick little wipe here, you guys can see, I mean, amazing condition. The bracelet is also really nicely done, but we'll just let that drape here. I think it's actually can close the clasp, it's just a little tight because it does have some links removed, but you can see that. Wow, check that out. Great wrist presence, just like you would expect from a Willard. Let's zoom in slightly here so we can get in tighter without getting so much lens distortion in terms of the watch kind of blowing up and looking oversized. You can see fits really nicely and sits really nicely on my 7¼ to 7½ inch wrist. It does have that similar kind of single dome aspect to it, to where at a harsh angle you're going to get a bit of distortion, but it is really nice. You know, one thing I forgot to do was the bezel action. Ooh, that's nice. I don't think the camera's going to pick it up. It's definitely quite a bit smoother. Wow, very dialed in. I like that. Feels very substantial. Nice dialed in kind of heavy action there. So really beautiful, and man, it just looks good. It looks the business. Kind of evokes you know, SBDC 101, you know, SPB143 vibes with the black bezel insert and then the gray dial. So really handsome. Now we'll get a little demo on how this cool Seiko fabric strap wears. It's a little interesting. As you can see here, this keeper is lower than that one, and it's because they're actually meant to be utilized slightly different than you would wear a normal NATO style strap. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread this through here. Oh, of course I'm reaching around a tripod, so Pardon me if I take a little bit longer. So a couple of stumbles there, but basically what you're gonna do is, instead of it folding back into itself, you just fold it outward and it tucks, and that's why they are at different opening lengths. So this one can hold there, that one holds there, and you can see also on my 7 1/4 to 7.5 inch wrist wears great. Of course, sitting pretty high off the wrist when you wear a thick strap like this. So mine, preference would probably be to put this on some type of tropic strap, or just any rubber dive strap. An accordion style would look really, really good on this one, I bet, just because of the case shape. I think that would look really fantastic. Maybe I'll grab one off screen here before we finish editing this and get you a quick look at that, because I think that would actually look pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm really, really digging this one. And then you are getting a very similar look and aesthetic with even a couple more extra goodies in terms of that warmth and some of those pale golden tones, and just a little bit more of kind of the again, that kind of age and a little bit of patina to kind of kickstart you off on your own journey of adding character to the watch. So very, very nice. So let's go ahead, get this piece off wrist, and get into some Lume shots of light transition and closing thoughts. Bonus footage. Okay, so even though I already recorded the finish, I went back as promised. I don't know where I'm gonna cut this into editing, but check this, guys, check this out. Looks great. It looks awesome on an accordion style strap. And some of you are wondering, wow, what kind of strap is that? It's actually from Zodiac, guys. They not only make some of the best dive watches, they also make some of the most awesome dive straps. Look at that multi finish there on the fully milled buckle. Amazing. Fully signed, great texturing underneath. You got nice little accordion action, so it's going to fit really great. I think that's a really handsome look. I love that aesthetic here, the accordion style. It just means business when I see that. I just really, really like that. Resonates with me. And let me go ahead and just strap this on for you guys really quick. So I have a larger wrist, of course, so not as much tongue left as you might have if you tried out a combination like this. But my goodness, check that out. One thing I did notice about the Willard, the SPB, is that its spring bar sits really, really low, which is good in terms of securing this with a fabric strap that passes through. But when it comes to an actual rubber strap or or any type of leather or anything like that, you're going to have a little bit more of a gap. So this actually, I think, helps fill that a little bit nicely, because you do get some extra height that comes in. Of course, it's not at this point, but you can see, I think it kind of offsets it really, really nice. So let's go ahead and bring the camera just a little bit tighter in there so we can take a close look at how this is going to look without getting so much lens distortion and making this thing look oversized. Now look at the way that rides on wrist. Nice and tight on the wrist, not elevated like it was on that fabric strap. Really beautiful. My goodness, what a combination. Ooh, a little torn now, guys. A little torn. I like that. All right, well, back to your scheduled programming. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, there's another difference. The Lume. Yeah, a very interesting thing about this Lume here is that on the SPB, it has blue glowing Lume, and pretty cool. I have to say, I forget which model. I believe it's the Baby Alpinist also has like a blue glowing Lume as well. I could be wrong, could be remembering that wrong, but then you get also the more standard green style Lume here on the SLA. They look freaking fantastic, guys. My goodness. And actually not that different in the dark, as you can see, of course, with just a little bit more symmetry on that SLA dial, because they do have that kind of tucked away date in between the 4 and the 5 o'clock marker. versus the more traditional 3. And you can see I do like to, of course, work in some low light transition because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourselves coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs or the shade of a tree, maybe just spending some time in your favorite automobile. So it is always nice to see how these colors renders, how these colors and finishes and textures render in less than optimal lighting. And even how the color of the Lume renders, and you can see still very, very legible, very bright. I mean, I didn't charge these up or anything. They're just basically charging from being under the studio lights. I'm sure after 10 minutes of regular sunlight, these would be probably glowing even brighter. But that's Lume Bright for you. So really beautifully done. Get into the some harsher lighting here. Typically would expose any types of defects within that finishing, but all you're going to see is it really just light up and showcase how uniform the light is gliding over that brushing. And my goodness, look at those dials. Very similar light play, and you can see again, kind of as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, they do both have kind of a slight sunray pattern, which splits the light up into about 4 different quadrants, as you can see, with kind of a sliver of bright there paralleling each other, and then slivers of dark. So very nice, adds a lot of depth. And then of course, even in that kind of medium lighting, still very legible. You're going to get of course a matte finish on the bezel insert on the SPB versus the SLA is going to be a much glossier finish. You can see all my little smudge marks from my thumb prints there. So there we have it, guys. These are awesome. Both really nice, very versatile. Again, you're both getting 20mm drilled lugs, so you can swap these out quite a bit. I will say that the bracelet is actually very, very impressive. It is a little bit on the small side. The nice thing is that they're short links, so that means you're going to be able to dial in the fitment really well. They're not super thick or chunky. They're actually thinner than you would find on the SPB's OEM bracelet. So interesting there. They both, of course, have that great super hard coating. You know, both have a fair amount of brushing and polishing, and I will say that the SLA, they clearly went the extra mile into some of those ornate details, but you know, the SPB isn't trailing too far behind. And even as you look at the seconds hands as they sweep now, honestly, even though the SLA is smoother, it's not like it's a really jarring difference there when you look over at the SPB's second hand. And you know, they both look really good. I want both of these watches now as a pair, but I'm really glad that Belmont watches helped save me a little bit of money, because I was able to experience these and kind of play around with them a little bit here and play off of them in terms of seeing how they look, how they wear, you know, without having to pay full admission. So with all that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.